Yeah, welcome everybody. My name is Alex. I'm gonna give a talk about from GitHub to production, a few learnings I did implementing a whole deployment process or concepts. My slides are on GitHub under this domain there. Not very interesting. Okay, who's the one in front? I'm Alex. I'm working at Adventure. It's yeah, in Hamburg it's a very small company. I'm front-end software engineer, and I'm caring about everything regarding to developer automation and operations. Oh no, wrong direction. Yeah, I love music and play drums. Okay, almost 2 months ago, very not far away, I started at Adventure as front-end engineer. The first day I had looked at as followed. Well, I had a project and I did some small changes, committed it, pushed it to GitHub. Then, okay, I wanted to deploy it to staging. Yeah, hey guys, which button do I have to press? I see a few smiling faces. Maybe a few of you can imagine. Yeah, even better, there's no button, but, haha, SSH into the server, git pull. Yeah, cool. And I was like, sorry, wrong direction. You all know it. Seriously, it's 2016, one does not deploy via git pull. So I said, okay, we need to change that. Seriously, it cannot stay. Okay, to give you a little bit of background, as I'm doing mainly front end, I give you a little bit of project overview, what kind of repositories we have. First and very important, we have documentation repositories. Yeah. We have also front-end projects, the regular one we do for customers and for internal purposes and for our own startups. Plus we have front-end libraries where all these projects depend on. And obviously we have backend repositories, but since this isn't JavaScript, I keep them away. Sorry. Okay, requirements. What do we want to have from this deployment circle? Yeah, after pushing to GitHub, to the branch develop, as we follow the Git flow convenience, we want to have the deployment running. On this CI server, we want to have the tests executed, obviously. We want to have bumped the next semantic version to our package.json, as we aren't only following Git flow, but also following the semantic version release cycle. I will have a deeper look into that later. Plus, we want to build an automatic changelog from the last semantic version we did till now to the latest release. The next, yeah, fancy buzzword. We want to build Docker containers. Yeah, everybody likes Docker containers or haven't even heard about that. We want to push this Docker container into our repository. We use Kubernetes as deployment, now as a serving framework for the Docker containers, as an infrastructure. We want to push to Slack because we are fancy. We want to have a Slack bot here. Here, cool. We have done a deployment. Yeah, cool stuff. Plus, we want to have the sites SSH protected. This isn't exactly a requirement of the deployment workflow, but for the whole infrastructure setup. So I added it to the list. Next. What we have as tooling set. Yeah, cool. Obviously, we have GitHub. so we don't need to change that. We have Circle CI. That was one of the first decisions I contributed in at the new company, as were deciding to use Travis CI or Circle CI, and I said, I've got some very good experiences with Circle CI regarding speed and extensibility and the possibility to script things. Yeah, so as Circle has a free container for builds, for private builds, we decided to try Circle, and if it's not cool, we can even change to Travis. So today we still stick with Circle because it's cool, sorry. We use Kubernetes, but not the plain Kubernetes. We use Google Cloud Platform, so we use the Google Container Engine to serve our stuff. Plus, obviously, we have Docker, and hey, cool, we have Slack. Not infrastructure related, but it's cool. Okay, the first I did because, no, the other way around. The first step I took was creating a deployment repository. We decided to not put the whole executions, the whole commands into the Circle YAMLs or Travis YAMLs, because we want to have them, one, reusable, and two, when we change them, we want them to be applied to every Circle YAML. So in order to do that, we decided to create a deployment repository where all these deploy and build scripts and the Circle YAMLs we have, they are collected there. Yeah, Circle YAMLs and the deploy scripts to pushing it to Kubernetes, or for the old projects, SSH into the server and do a git pull, and build scripts. Yeah. Of course, that isn't as easy as expected as every project. So obviously there are pitfalls. First, we wanted to automatically get the commit or the bunch of commits transitioned through the Git flow workflow. But there is a problem with that because, sorry. Locally, you would just do a brew install git flow AVH, assuming you're on Mac. And this is working pretty good. But it's working pretty good on OS X or locally. It works on my machine. Toll. Super, fancy. As we are building on Ubuntu distributions on Circle, one would assume that it's only a sudo apt-get install git-flow. Yes, that works. But you can't execute git flow. I have no idea why. I wasn't able to figure out. So I had to install it manually. Luckily, the git flow AVH repository ships with an install script. But this install script wasn't that easy to use. It does a git clone. And from serious reasons, it wasn't able to git clone. So it's a public repository, and doing that, it said, hey, it looks like either the repository does not exist or you don't have access. It's a public repository. What's the matter? I don't know. I'll show you that one later. It's a bit of a mess. No, I'm going to show you that now. That does work. I have to find my window. Yeah, cool. So, is everyone able to read that? Yeah, no, yeah, cool. Okay, that looks pretty simple, but it took me 5 hours to figure out. Okay, first we create under the home directory the git flow directory. It's pretty obviously. Then we get this, there is an install script string there, so we just get this deploy script. And now there's the magic. You have to export a variable repo home to set the repository URL to Git to work on Circle. So simply git clone http :/ does not work. But with this setup, well, cool, it works. With this setup, one could easily export this environment variable and tell sudo, hey, sudo, if you open a new shell to execute this command, please pass through every environment variable to the command bash. And then you could easily execute it. Funnily, there is another problem. As you may see, and now I'm executing this script with set-e. Set-e fails if one of the commands contained in this file fails. But funnily, this command fails every time, even if it installs correctly. So, yeah, no words. Right, and having that done, one can easily install it. Okay, let's remove it again. There's my cursor. Goodbye, WebStorm. No, damn it. Yeah, and I have to find it. Yeah, nice. Okay, that was GitFlow. Now it's set up. The working with it was pretty nice, but there is another funny fact with GitFlow. If you do a brew install git-flow on OS X, you get the old version. There are two versions of GitFlow. One is git-flow, and one is git-flow-avh. There is an issue with the old one, which doesn't get updated for 2 years now, I guess. When you do git-flow release finish -m to pass a message, and this message contains a space, GitFlow will fail for some serious reason, I don't know. This issue was fixed in git-flow-avh, so I simply decided to use that, but then we got into these issues, and you can imagine. Focus. Yeah. Okay, Kubernetes. Kubernetes is, how many of you doesn't know Kubernetes? Do you know? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, oh, okay. Kubernetes is a very smart framework. It allows you to simply replicate containers within a replication controller, which you can then expose as a service, which makes the whole process very easy. I will show you a bit more of that later when it gets to an example. There is a problem with that because, yeah, Kubernetes has a nice feature called rolling update to replicate, no, to replace the replication controllers, which does work very nice. So you just tell Kubernetes, hey, please replace this replication controller with this new image of Docker, with this new Docker container image. But this pretty nice command has a problem which isn't contained in any docs. It's singleton over the whole Kubernetes cluster. So if you do a rolling update for one replication controller, and during that one is running, start another one, Kubernetes will say, hey, sorry, there is already a rolling update running. If you want to do that on a CI server with multiple projects, you can imagine that does not work. So I don't know. Why I don't know. Okay. You want to see it in action? Sure. And we want to see some code, obviously. Sure. So demo time. As an example, this is a very small documentation repository I created about 1.5 weeks ago. This gets compiled to Jekyll. We'll get to this later. And we just have markdown files here and a bunch of configurations. So how does that work on Circle? Well, let's skip that. And let's try to do... Gets even bigger. Oh, okay. This is the Circle YAML, which tells Circle what it has to do during a build run. So first, okay, we do some Docker info that does not care. But then we clone, oh, that doesn't fit on the monitor. We clone our internal deployment repository under deployment in the home directory. Then we do a simple npm install because there are some npm scripts and we use some npm modules, which we'll dig into later. Then we have to execute a few scripts. And as you see here, we just execute scripts in this Circle YAML. So there is no command which gets executed because every command we execute is hidden or contained by one of these script files. So in this case, we use, within the scripts file, we have a documentations directory which contains every file, our build and deploy scripts, depending on documentation repositories. And there is an install deps file. There is also a Google Cloud auth file, which just does Google Cloud, hey, I am this user, please give me access to push the Docker image and access the Kubernetes cluster. And then it's just a build. Just a build. Plus, we have here this deployment configuration. On master and develop, we want to build the Docker container. We want to push the Docker container into our registry. And we want to trigger the release on Kubernetes. As I told you before, I want to trigger the deploy on Kubernetes isn't that easy. Currently, this is doing nothing because it was breaking the builds. But we plan to push a message into a queue from this Circle build, and then have a queue consumer working this queue and doing this rolling update to have them executed in a sequence. Okay. Now this docs I'll show you pretty quick. It's just a sequence of bash scripts. We just do a Jekyll build of this documentation stuff and tell Jekyll, hey, please compile this markdown files and build it, and not much. Then we just do a Docker build from this image and push the image into the registry, and that's all for it. On Circle, this looks as follows. That is pretty big. I guess we can... Yeah, better. Okay, so on Circle it looks like follows. It just installs the whole bunch and installs the whole, okay, one cannot read that, dependencies, and installs the dependencies and authorizes, builds the docs. As they are not tested, we exit here. Then we build the container, as one can see from here, and add this whole stuff and install HTTP server as a serving package, and then we just push it into our Google Container Registry. So that's it for this documentation repository. You will say, no, okay, that's just documentation. We want to see some, I don't know, projects. The problem is I'm not allowed to show these. what I can show you is how it works out, but also not allowed, sorry. Okay. For the projects, what we decided to use, as I mentioned before, we want to get these change logs from what we did. In order to get that working, we decided to use conventional changelog, which itself requires some commit message standards. How many of you are aware of this Angular commit message standard? Not so many. Oh, I didn't expect that one. Angular has a commit message standard, guideline, in which, does that open? Yeah, it's working. The commit message standard is pretty much only, okay, you have a type of commit, you give them its scope and a subject, plus you can add some information here, and these gets analyzed. You have a few types like feature or bug fix, documentation, style changes, refactorings, a bunch of things. Yeah. So we decided to use this commit message standard, as we all were aware of it. Plus, there are a few very nice packages. They are all belonging to the conventional changelog GitHub organization. Yeah. There are a few packages which you can use, like these. There is one package which does the whole infrastructure setup, called conventional changelog. And then there are a few very important packages for us. There is this conventional recommended bump. This is the package analyzing the Git commit history and telling you, hey, you need to do a major bump. You can use then Zemver to say, okay, my current release is this one, and I get a major bump. And Zemver then tells you, okay, you have to do an 1.1.0, for example. Plus, having that said, you have this conventional changelog CLI, which generates from the diff from the previous Git tag to the current Git tag, and generates a very nice changelog from that. We also use Committizen, that is a plugin or a node module which you use locally to have your Git commit messages standardized. So it gives you a form, which type do you want to commit, and which scope do you have, and stuff like that, and then generates the commit message for you. Pretty nice. Okay. Unfortunately, this whole setup isn't done yet for production, because I'm there only 2 months, and it wasn't enough time to get everybody set up, unfortunately. But we have all this process for committing and building the NPM release and going through the Git flow, workflow. We have everything belongs that working for the documentation repos and for the libraries. So when a library is merged, when the pull request on a library is merged, then we go through this whole workflow and open the Git flow release and commit the next bump and commit the changelog and finish the release, push it back to GitHub, and then the NPM release is done, plus a change is, a notice is pushed to Slack. But you can do a lot of things more. You can do what I told you earlier, build a queue to get this whole Kubernetes rolling update done, either using kubectl, which is a CLI, or using the Kubernetes API, which does the same. Plus, we are planning on adding monitoring. Using Google Container Engine, there are a few options you can choose. One is Google Cloud Monitoring, which has some pretty nice statistics. But unfortunately, Google Cloud Monitoring collects all the data, but you cannot create statistics from all of those. There are only a bunch of log types which you can aggregate and create a statistic from that. So we just decided, okay, there is a nice dashboard framework out there. Let's just use it. So we're gonna build the zoo apps for circle status and open source them, and gonna build some zoo apps for Kubernetes replication status, because Kubernetes itself provides a very clean API to get information about everything you have running in your cluster. So you get very verbose output, and you can use this to create some informational dashboards for it. Yeah, we want to build a status overview for our projects, like you know from Travis or Circle or GitHub, where you can see, okay, this project is this version, and the last build on Circle was green, and it's the last version there, and on production is this, and on staging is that version, and Kubernetes is green for it. There are 4 pods running with this application, where you can also create projects and trigger deployments by hand if one failed. And that's pretty much all from now, I guess. I missed a few steps, or I left a few steps out because either I wasn't able to show them or I wasn't allowed to show them. You can do pretty much with this whole NPM and conventional changelog stuff on a CI server. And if you invest a few amount of time, you can automate the whole process so that one of your developers doesn't need to do anything by hand. And this is pretty a pretty strong feature, because automatic things are tested often, and they're less false afflicted. So for us, it worked out pretty clear, and it's running pretty good since now. So I hope we can open source a few of these scripts and a few of these projects we are building, like this rolling update queue. And we hopefully will write a few blog posts with these learnings, with, hey, how to install Gitflow AVH, or how to do this and how to do that. And yeah, then thanks everybody.